When it comes to textbook information that's really dense with information, people think they have to use a combination of all the memory techniques and systems in order to memorize it. Some people, and I don't know why, they're obsessed with memorizing everything word for word. Like if they memorize a whole book, they're going to understand everything, but that's not the case. But I want to share a very simple but powerful technique that applies to this type of information. Like we learn a lot of new ideas, and it's very complex, and everything kind of intertwines with each other. The technique is connect the new with the old. Because I was talking to someone about learning philosophy, and I think they wanted to hear something about use a memory palace, break it down into like 1,000 locations, 5 locations per chapter, and you have to use these memory systems, something that complicated. But all I told them was connect the new stuff that you're learning to what you know. That could be current knowledge, that could be examples of what the thing's talking about, experiences, whatever it is from yourself, what you already know, what you experienced. Now, I want to show you what I mean. So this is a list of a whole bunch of cognitive biases that they affect the way that you think because you're leaning your bias, right, on what you're thinking because of these different things, these different factors. So I want to go through and just kind of tell you what I kind of picture right away. So gambler's fallacy, that's going to be dice. Functional fixedness, that's going to be a lint roller. Frequency illusion, Buster Baxter from Arthur. Gender bias, Bo. And hindsight bias, Bitcoin. So you might be thinking like, what's that? What does that even mean? Well, I looked at all these different definitions, okay? Because what people would usually do is this. Okay, gambler's fallacy, let me put that in location number 1. The tendency to think that future probabilities are altered by past events when in reality they are unchanged. Okay, so let me start creating images for all these different words, trying to memorize it as much as possible word for word. So that's what somebody would do. But what I did was I read this. Okay, the tendency to think that future possibilities are altered by past events when in reality they are unchanged. And then here it gives you like a little example. But for me, I was like, whoa. I remember in math class, we learned about a roulette. You could like land on black or red. And this roulette landed on black 36 times. And so everyone was betting on red because it was red's turn. It was 36 black, so red had to show up. And these people lost a huge amount of money. But this is the gambler's fallacy because the roulette wheel doesn't care that it landed on black 36 times, a bajillion times. Every single time you spin it, it's going to be 50-50. And so for me, I think we were also doing some stuff with dice too. So for me, all I need to remember this is dice. That's all. Because the dice is going to remind me, oh yeah, gambler's fallacy, I see dice. So what the whole thing might look like is I might use a memory palace to memorize all the names. Okay, just that. Just so I know what they represent, right? So gambler's fallacy, that might be on my bed. I see a whole bunch of people playing poker, and then boom, they get squished by dice. That's it. I don't need all these additional images and like work to memorize this definition. Gender bias, a widely held set of implicit biases that discriminate against a gender. So like girls can't play football, something like that, or sports. So for me, I think of a bow because pink inherently is not a girl color, right? Society dictated pink was girl. And so for me, that's what I use. Hindsight bias, Bitcoin, because right now Bitcoin is like around that, give or take, $59,000 per Bitcoin. And everyone's like, oh, of course it's going to go that much. Look at the technology behind it, all that stuff. That's hindsight bias because, of course, it's obvious now when it's super, super expensive for a Bitcoin. But back in the day, it was like 10 cents a Bitcoin or less. So there's no way back then you would ever think it would reach 59,000, 60,000, right? So for this, what I did was I just read through what the bias was and then started to think about my own experiences, things I saw. So like the frequency illusion, there's a show called Arthur, but a character Buster Baxter. He had a lucky number because there was like a class list. I don't want to go into a whole episode. Class list, he was 11, I believe. And so he started seeing 11 everywhere. When he woke up, it was 11. How much cereal pieces he had was 11. How much change he had was 11. And so that's what this bias is talking about. Just because you notice something, you start seeing it everywhere. So all I need to think about to remember that, the frequency illusion, Buster Baxter. because I related it to something I know already, right? That specific episode. Now, of course, the cognitive biases applies to people, and I'm a person, right? So it's really easy for me to fall victim to any of these, so I have examples of them. But even when you're learning something like chemistry, physics, whatever it is, philosophy, you still can connect that information to other things that you already know, at least in some aspect. Like for quantum mechanics, you're kind of imaginary. You have these imaginary electrons that are waves at times, but you can't really see a wave. But it helps to see electrons, kind of like the solar system, even though it's a bad example. How the sun is in the center and the planets orbit around the solar system, right? And so the image for an atom that's wrong is you have the nucleus, then you have the electrons orbiting around it, but it's more like waves and different nodes. Won't get into it, but having that connection, like, okay, it's kind of like this, but then you kind of have like these cloud areas where it could be, and some spots where it can't be. So once I did that when I was studying chemical engineering, it made understanding quantum mechanics that much easier. Still, kind of whoosh, I don't know what was going on with quantum mechanics, but I was able to get a better understanding of it, okay? So that's why this method, connect the new to the old, is probably one of the best when you're actually learning complicated information, because you can't really connect it or use this method for like random words or random numbers or cards. I can never use that because it's just like a disconnect, right? It's just completely random. There's nothing to be used by memorizing that deck of cards. Even your grocery list, right? Yes, you go to the grocery store maybe every time to buy some specific things, but you can't apply the connect the new to the old method because you're not applying it. You're not trying to understand it. It's just these are the things you need to buy. That's it. Nothing else to do with it. So be aware that this method can't be applied to every single information out there. But like textbook information, law, medical, you're able to apply to understand the different concepts and ideas that you're learning. And that's something people don't understand because, like I just showed you, I still think it's funny. I don't know why. Right here, frequency illusion, Buster Baxter, fictional fixedness, a lint roller. That's because I made a video describing what can you use a lint roller for. It was like an exercise. And so that's what comes to mind. So it's just so much easier to have that connection to information, to experience, to a feeling, whatever it may be, because that connection is real, right? It's already there. So once you make that connection, every time I think of gambler's fallacy, I'm going to think of that roulette wheel. And that's why I thought of, right when I saw it, gender bias, pink bow, hindsight bias, Bitcoin. Of course I should have bought it because I had a chance to buy Bitcoin at like $18,000 and I should have bought it then. But yeah, that's the thing, right? It's just like when you make these connections to something you already know, it's just like so easy, it just flows out. Even if you were to forget the name, you'll still be able to, at least in this situation, describe what the bias is in some aspect, Like if I started thinking about it, oh yeah, Buster Baxter, he started seeing 11 error. Oh yeah, that's a frequency bias. So that's when you notice something, then you start to notice it everywhere, thinking that it's like a special thing, but it's not. It's just a coincidence. So yeah, so I wanted to share that with you because I thought it was super cool, especially when I was talking to that person about philosophy. We talked about Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And it is something people overlook all the time. Memory techniques are not always, you have to create all these imageries, you have to have all these palaces, have all these memory systems. Yes, they're great for specific things, but a memory technique is anything you could use to help you remember information. And connecting something new to something that's old, finding some parallels, finding some examples, experiences, that is a memory technique in itself. So I wanted to share that technique with you, but also open your mind up to what's a memory technique. If it helps you remember something and it's fairly simple and you do it, automatically, try to kind of like diagnose it right there. Like, hey, what am I doing? Why do I always remember this? Oh, I remember that because I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Wait, what if I can apply that to something else? Would that make it easier too? So that's what I want you to realize here is that you might be doing something that you always do to remember a specific information, but its application can be applied to all types of information. But that's for you to figure out. And so that's what I want to share with you. So don't get stuck with any of these biases because that's probably one of these somewhere. thinking that you have to use these complicated memory techniques, in combination and everything, or is that there's no more memory techniques? Probably by summer, so don't fall victim for it. But let me know if there's stuff that you've been doing that you apply to something all the time, but you never realize it until now. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.